Mr. Correa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, welcome again. You're a refugee from Cuba. My grandparents are essentially immigrants from Mexico. And as I look around this room, I would say probably everybody here is the descendant of a refugee, an immigrant, economic or otherwise. There's a lot of violence around the world right now, Mr. Secretary, a lot of wars. I also recently had the opportunity to travel to the border, this time to San Isidro, but this time to look and observe what's going on with the Ukrainian refugees from the Russian-Ukrainian war. There's about 1,000 refugees from Ukraine reaching Tijuana on a daily basis, 1,000. We've allocated 100,000 temporary protective status tickets, those golden tickets. You get into the U.S. under TPS. The UN report, yesterday the UN reported an estimated 8 million Ukrainian refugees expected to leave Ukraine this year alone. I bet that 100,000 cap, TPS, is going to be hit pretty quickly. Mr. Secretary, what do we do when 100,000 Ukrainian refugees are admitted into this country? Are we going to blow through that cap, or can we give them more admissions to the U.S.?
Congressman, let me first, if I can, make sure that the language we use is precise. Temporary protected status, or TPS, applies to those Ukrainians who are already resident in the United States. What we are speaking of when we are speaking of bringing 100,000 Ukrainians who have fled their brutally attacked nation, we are speaking of the refugee program, we are speaking of the grant of humanitarian parole, and we are also speaking of the visa programs that the Department of State administers. The President has committed to bringing 100,000 Ukrainians to relief here in the United States. There will be others, in addition, who could be eligible for relief under the grant of humanitarian parole, which is judged on an individualized case-by-case basis.
Mr. Secretary, you proposed that the prior administration effectively dismantled the refugee program. Is that essentially what happened?
That is true, and if I had 20 seconds,
please.
I could actually say the following to the congressman who did not give me an opportunity to say anything. Number one, we have intensified efforts to dismantle the transnational criminal organizations and human smuggling networks in an unprecedented level. Number two, we've brought greater efficiency to the process of unaccompanied children and uniting them with a parent, legal sponsor, or other qualified family member here in the United States. And three, the prior administration took accompanied children and deliberately made them unaccompanied.
Mr. Secretary, my concern is with what is going to happen this year. Unprecedented number of refugees coming to the United States. And we should open our arms to those individuals that are fleeing war and devastation around the world. Again, from Ukraine, I would imagine we are going to probably get more than 1 million at our doorstep here this year. And soon as the Russian economy collapses, you have a whole lot more Russians here as well. And this is nothing new. For the last 2 years at the southern border, we've had Russian and Ukrainian undocumented individuals crossing the border. Your agents have told me that. And so my question to you, sir, how do we put together a program that's humane, looks at the refugees, admits them to the U.S., and also not forget about the Central Americans, the Syrians, other refugees that are also there waiting to be admitted to the United States?
Congressman, very briefly in the few seconds that I have. Number one, it is our view that the majority of Ukrainians that have fled their country, their sovereign nation, want to return there, number one. Number two, that is precisely why this administration is focused on safe, orderly, and humane pathways to obtain relief under the laws of the United States.
Sir, I'm running out of time. I just want to call your attention to these two photos I took at the border 3 weeks ago. This is the face of refugees coming to America.
The time of the gentleman has expired.